All right, guys. Well, welcome for joining us this Thursday morning. I know it's all sorts of different times for you guys. Thanks for dialing in. We're excited to have here Paul Trani with us this morning to talk about building mobile apps in Dreamweaver CC. With that, Paul, I'm going to switch up your layout.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for answering the questions, too. Looks like, and thank you, Megan. Good talking to you today, and good seeing a lot of people attending as well. So give me 1 second. I'll be sharing my screen. Wait for it. Switch over. Might go gray for a second, and then you'll see my screen. All right. So, yeah, welcome everybody. Good to see some familiar names in the attendee list and chat pod. We have a couple other people. We have Tarek on the lines, part of marketing for Dreamweaver and some of the web apps, as well as I think Alejandro might be here. So nonetheless, welcome everyone. I want to make this worth your time. This is not going to be overly complex. If I confuse anybody at any point in time, then I've done a horrible job. So anyway, so let's go ahead and dive into this, because this is all about building mobile apps using Dreamweaver CC. And shameless plug, my name is Paul Trani. I work for Adobe as an evangelist, mainly focusing on the web tools. And shameless self-promotion, because you can always go to my website and see various tutorials, and I've done some on Dreamweaver recently. So I encourage you to check those out. But enough about me. I did notice that we have a split. Looks like we have some creatives as well as developers in the room, if I was reading those polls correctly. So I'll try to adjust my content accordingly. But we know we're going to be talking about HTML5. We're going to talk about creating content, not for older browsers, and nor are we working the way we used to back in the day on these old CRT monitors that were absolutely huge and usually beige, testing in Netscape and stuff. We're kind of past those days, but it's funny, Dreamweaver has stood the test of time, okay? It really has. It has. There were other products out there, and it seems like Dreamweaver has sort of risen to the top, and that's really good to see. But we know we're dealing with a new web today. Multiple screens, lots of different browsers, but really it's these different screens that we're dealing with. All right, so, and I'll make sure I speak loud and clear. And this should go for about an hour, so I'm not going to get too lost in, the Opera browser or anything, because we're going to focus on creating content using web technologies, web standards, WebKit even, using Dreamweaver. All right. So that is the goal. And I do want to stay true to the description as well, which you'll see in a second. But I also want to encourage you to check out archives, because as I start to get more into PhoneGap, know that there are sessions that have been recorded about PhoneGap and writing plugins for it, open sessions, getting started with push notifications in PhoneGap. So I'm just pointing out this as a resource for you, okay? But we're all about working with Dreamweaver, which I don't know, this is my phrasing. It is sort of under new management as far as Dreamweaver is concerned. Not really, but with Alejandro's the new product manager, so and just a new modern mobile web that we're dealing with. So Dreamweaver's evolving with the times, which is really cool to see. I can go through all of these various features, but I'm not going to. There's past sessions that kind of talk about the new features, but that's just the list for you guys to be impressed by, right? Okay. But again, back to the description, we're going to build, I'm just going to build an app. I'm going to talk about HTML5, implementing HTML5 content, jQuery, JavaScript, things like that, and how to build and package native apps is what I will be doing. So, yeah, and then we'll get into PhoneGap as well, all right? So let's go ahead and check this out. And I'm going to go ahead and open up Dreamweaver. Here we are. And here I already have some content in Dreamweaver. So with content in Dreamweaver, any web-based content, I can go ahead and, of course, go to Live View, and I can start to preview this content and use the CSS Designer to start to add CSS properties and even just check out any properties that might be available for anything that I select, like I'm doing right now. So I'm actually using a web font right here, or I can change it to a web font for that particular header font there and implement that. But the new CSS Designer is actually pretty powerful, so I encourage you to check it out and hopefully don't change your font into something ugly like I just did. But true to the description, I want to talk about some quick HTML5 forms. Now don't stay with me, guys, because when I say that, I'm kind of bored a little bit. I'm like, forms, really? Well, I want to talk about HTML5, forms, and then even jQuery. So let's make some things happen, say, for instance, with jQuery. All right? And I'll show you why this is important, especially to mobile. All right? Definitely, as I start to put this together. So in general, I can go into jQuery UI and jQuery mobile, but notice how we've cleaned this up. So you won't see Spry in here. It's like Spry has been taken place by jQuery UI, because chances are you guys are using jQuery UI if you're using any sort of framework. So I could go ahead and I can insert a dialog box, for instance. Just selecting that, I can insert that dialog box, all right? Whether it's jQuery UI or jQuery mobile, I can drop that in, as you can see right there. And I can see that content, and it also adds just a script at the bottom. But nonetheless, I can add that jQuery dialog, all right? So let's just go in here and check out that dialog right there. And yeah, you can see that that particular content. So I actually want to put it right in here. So I can insert any of these jQuery UI components, and when I insert them, you'll see down in the Properties panel, we have actually reorganized this, but we made this easy to basically toggle on and off whatever you want, whether you want it to be a modal window, draggable, auto open, whatever the case may be, you can add right in here. So I can take that, and again, it adds that functionality at the bottom. So let me just do that one more time, just so we're clear, putting it in the right spot, inserting a dialog box, and then making it modal, so it's going to make it gray behind it, and maybe let's not have it auto open, but I'm just going to have that open when you select the login button, all right? So again, in Design View, I can preview this in a browser, and you'll see that content. And this is jQuery UI just to get us started. As I select login, you can see content for the new dialog goes here. And that's what Dreamweaver does. It just makes things easy for you to add content. All right, so that looks good. I can move on and start adding content to it, such as the HTML5 forms, like I mentioned earlier. Okay, so I can go into forms, and I'm just encouraging you to use these because it might seem simple just to have, say, for instance, a text field. That's easy enough. But what we can do with these text fields now is I don't really have to have a label above it. I can have placeholder text and other options. So I can say name. Put your name in right here. Okay? And let's make sure I add the form itself. Adding text for the person's name, adding an email address. And when I do that, this becomes important because it's actually going to bring up the keyboard that's going to be specific for emails. So I don't know if you guys have noticed that on iOS. And I don't know if it's on Android, but basically if I select an email HTML5 form, it will bring up the @ symbol and a period on that small screen. So that's why I want to use it. Same thing for if I was to add in telephone. It's going to bring up the telephone keypad that I can enter in right there. So. All right, and it's cool on older browsers, it'll just default to a text field. So again, log in, I can see it right here, text field, email, telephone. I can make those mandatory or required, but as I even type in, you can see how it's red. Well, it's already doing some validation that I don't have to worry about writing any of that code. That validation is already being done because it's an HTML5 email form. So once it's correct, then it highlights blue. Telephone number, I can add parameters in here as well. Obviously, I don't want letters. Well, I can add in parameters to make sure that just gives me a telephone number. And that's all done right back in here as I select this item. You can say, hey, it's required, and then what it would require. And I've just used this web page just to show you that jQuery UI HTML5 forms. But let's move on from that because I want to create actually just a new page, all right? And this is the easiest thing you guys can do when it comes to creating a mobile app or even just a mobile website. And that is going File, New, Starter Templates, Mobile Starters, and then you can pick from one of these 3 samples. All right? So that's all you need to do is select any one of those. This was in Dreamweaver CS6. We've actually also updated jQuery as well. So I can even show you how to do that, but basically in the application folder, I can actually point to a particular folder to update jQuery Mobile. And that's why Creative Cloud is important, because we can update Dreamweaver with the latest frameworks and the latest versions, so you don't have to. So it's nice that Dreamweaver will always it will be updated on a regular basis. And I've seen the roadmap, and it seems like Dreamweaver gets it got updated more than the others. All right. So, and again, I want this content to be updated. It will be updated as a Creative Cloud member. I'm going to go ahead and create a new page based on that sample. I can see it here. I can select save this content to that particular folder. And as I select live view, you'll see that content. Okay, so from here, again, this is jQuery mobile. And what is jQuery mobile? It's just HTML content. So I can change it, that content right in here, include imagery, anything I want. In fact, even when it comes to inserting jQuery mobile content, I can select that from the insert panel as well. So selecting jQuery mobile. And what are we going to add? Well, maybe I want to add some checkboxes. Keep in mind these are mobile checkboxes. I can add a checkbox list of about 5 if I want to, selecting OK. Remember that's on page 2. Maybe on page 3, I want to have, you know, more text with some content, maybe inserting a button, okay? And this is what I get. Anytime I do that, I'm given options for inserting that content. So you can see how many buttons do I want. 1, 2, 3. Let's make 1 button. And even give it an icon. So give it an alert icon. But I have these icons that I didn't have to build that will be added to my project. And this whole button in general will be mobile optimized. All right, so I get these custom settings thanks to Dreamweaver and actually jQuery mobile. All right, so checking this out. In fact, I'll go to live view, page 2, which is where I added those checkboxes. You can see that that is mobile optimized. I can check that content and have a submit button. Maybe it's a checklist for camping, who knows what it is. But you have that capability. And then I'm looking at the Q&A, Antonio, as far as, is it a best practice to have all your pages on your index, or is it good to create separate HTML pages? I like having it all in one personally, since this is going to be a mobile app. I know once this page is loaded in, I can quickly transition from one page, and I'm doing air quotes, you don't see me do that, to another page in air quotes, when really it's all one .html page. So it's good to put them all in one because they're going to load faster. And then there was a question about customizing the button, and I think that's a great idea. And somebody's asking, how do you go back to the main menu? Well, I can use these controls right here, because this is basically a browser running in Dreamweaver. So I can hit back, and it will go back to the previous menu. So I'll go to page 3, which is where I've added that button, and you can see, again, somebody asked about this particular icon, which we can work on. But you can see this is all HTML. So coming in here, I might consider changing this content. This might be, you know, camping fundamentals, recipes, compass, something like that. Okay, so we have camping fundamentals, recipes, and compass. Okay, and I'll get into something like the compass later, but the idea of tapping into functionality that's only available on a device and not on your desktop. All right. And yeah, I can implement a back button as well. A back button is basically going to be, say, this button right here in my menu bar. All right. So I can always implement that back button right here basically by moving that up. That actually should do it. So I can take that and move that up. All right. So that's what I can do. Quickly add that back button since I was asked, and I can have it go back. But let's take a look at this because I was also, let's just refresh this. I should actually give that some functionality. But let's take a look at this because I'm not particularly impressed with what we have so far. Sure, I've added a button. I've added some content. I can add more content, again, right in here. As appropriate. But I do want to customize this because I know that was asked earlier as well. Like, how would you customize this content? Well, I could go into the CSS Designer panel, okay, and I can maybe select this particular text and start to see those properties in there. And you can see how it looks already. It can get pretty darn robust because all of this CSS has already been written for me. All right, so how do I customize this? You know, I can go through and see it, but how can it be, again, customized? So again, I can inspect this content, try to get an idea of where that gradient is, and I can select that gradient and shift it to red if I want to. Okay, so I've just changed that. And I like how the CSS Designer has made it a lot easier because if you remember CS6, I would just be given a drop-down list and some various properties. It wasn't as seamless as adding content this way, like adding a linear gradient, okay? And again, it will add the vendor-specific prefixes, and that's in preferences, say when it comes to gradients, because maybe gradients aren't supported everywhere. I can take a look at what CSS is added for that. All right, but again, I can select that particular, color, do something like that. I can see it being applied, and I can move on from there. But that actually gets to be a lot of work, especially as you start selecting these different properties. I think the CSS Designer panel makes it easier. It allows me to select maybe, I don't know, that background and change that color, okay? But again, it gets tricky since I didn't write any of that CSS, all right? So how do I change it a little easier? Well, luckily, again, let's just minimize this panel. And excuse me for this being so darn ugly. I feel terrible about that, and I'm tempted to fix it. But what's nice is I can change this content. So I can come in here and even for the home page, if I wanted to change any of these colors or these themes, I can go in here for that particular page. So I can see this particular page right here. I can open up the jQuery mobile swatches because jQuery has swatches that you can switch between, okay? So opening that up, there it is. You can see it right here. And as I select those different colors, you can see how that's changing. All right, so you can see since I've selected these inner items, it's changed them to yellow, which is known as theme E, okay? And that's when I picked this starter project, it was a jQuery mobile with theme. So these are basically the different themes that I'm getting, okay? So you can see how quickly you can make things look ugly. All right, and we're gonna fix that. But you can see the one that I customized here is like, that's this theme A actually, that's not bad, but you can see that gradient. Again, a little techie for my taste, but I wanna really customize this more than be given these 6 colors. So that's what I wanna do. I really wanna customize this more. Again, I wish there was a way to get more themes, but then I'm looking at here, I'm like, oh, look, what's that? Oh, get more themes. Sounds like a great idea. Selecting, get more themes. And it opens up Theme Roller. You could roll your own, people. Roll your own right in here. Theme Roller for jQuery Mobile. Okay, so yes, the CSS Designer panel is great, but I love the ability that I could just jump in here, and if I wanted to change that to red, that top bar, bam, just dropping in that color. Adjusting even the saturation of these. So I might want to make this a little lighter, I don't know, a lighter gray, something like that. But I can start to fully customize this just based on this web interface. I will just kind of change these colors quickly. Actually, let's go with red. But you'll start to come in here and play with this. And personally, I think this is good. Even before you jump into Dreamweaver, it's good to come in here and just start to work with your different colors, okay? I almost think it would be nice to pull in some color swatches. Well, sure enough, you can by selecting Adobe Cooler swatches, okay? So I can pick from the latest cooler swatches directly from Theme Roller. All right. Kind of like that. Changing it up based on this theme. And again, these colors could have been taken from the Cooler app and created that way. So there we are. Let's just go with that. Pretend that that looks good, guys. Okay, so just work with me. Let's add red instead of this. There we go. That looks good. So here we have this app that it looks like we're creating it for Pottery Barn or something. I don't know. Some maybe Babies R Us or something. I don't know. But either way, I've just modified theme A. I can jump in and I can start modifying theme B and then theme C accordingly as well. All right, and from there, all I need to do is if I want to start using this theme is I can just download that CSS. I'll just call it Paul's. Downloading that zip actually gives me this line of code as well, tells me where to put it, but I can download that CSS right now. So this is all pretty straightforward and is easier to sort of create any sort of app color scheme that you want going beyond the 6 themes that you initially get. So this is what I've created. I can copy that folder, go into that particular folder where I want to put it, and you guys know how this goes. Just like that. I can always see where that line of code goes. In fact, I'll just copy that line, jump into Dreamweaver, and then paste it in. But I still need to do some more customization because all I did is customize the colors. So I'm going to do that in a second as well. So pasting that in, Paul's CSS. And then picking out that specific, there we go, let's fix that. There we go. There I've just implemented those colors by adding that CSS. All right, cool. Easy enough. So yes, I can do that. I can go ahead and customize this. I might want to go further, especially when it comes into these buttons. So this particular button, maybe I want to customize it as well. Well, jQuery Mobile Swatches Panel changes based on what you have selected. Okay, so if I select this particular button, you'll see the icons change. All right? So initially I might have this alert icon. I can change that to an arrow pointing to the right. Okay? I don't like the default location. Well, let's switch it to the other side. Or let's put it underneath, and it changes all that content for me. Okay? And keep in mind the button theme I actually did not change. Okay? But I can change that based on what I selected earlier. All right? All right, cool. So that's how I can easily build an app. Again, it could be straight HTML, CSS that you've written from scratch. You can use the HTML5 forms. You can use jQuery UI. You can use jQuery mobile, as I've shown. All right, and you can add more to it as well, all from the insert panel. So you can see it right in here. All these jQuery mobile components that you can add, okay? And I've just added a couple of them, all right? But let's take this a step further because really I'd like to actually put this on a, or convert this into an app is what I want to do, all right? Or package it as an app, all right? Well, let me just switch. I don't know if you guys mind. I might just switch to actually one that was created a little better than this one, all right? If you don't mind, I'm just going to switch over to one that I have a little bit more developed. That's not quite so ugly. And yes, I don't know why I saved that one. But nonetheless, here we are, sort of this one that was created, and it was customized based on the jQuery mobile components, okay? So you can see you have custom icons, and I know somebody asked, oh, can you add a picture in the background? And you can. That's actually a photo in the background, all right? So you can customize this stuff any way you want, and you don't even have to use these jQuery mobile UI components if you don't want to, okay? So you can create everything from scratch if you want to. But nonetheless, once you have it created, I want to go from, this HTML content that I can preview in a browser, by the way. And chances are, guys, you'll probably do like 90% of your work on the desktop, okay? So it's really occasionally that you'd want to publish it out to an app, more just to check it out, but most of your coding is going to be done on the desktop. So again, I can go into Cookout, and so far the stuff might test out pretty well. There's the back button, but as I select this heat source, you can see this drop-down list. And this is at a point where, I need to actually test this on a mobile device. I actually need to package this up as an app because I want to see how this is going to look on an iOS or Android device. All right, so I'm basically at that point where I want to go ahead and publish this as an app. So what's going to happen is these are all my files right here. Okay, it's not a lot. In fact, everything is one page like I mentioned earlier. But all I need to do at that point is go to Site, PhoneGap Build Service. All right? And in previous versions, what was it, Dreamweaver CS 5.5, you actually had to have the SDKs installed on your desktop in order to build apps, which was a pain because then you always had to make sure you had the latest SDK, and you had to have it for iOS and Android, and it was a pain, to be honest with you. And the thing is you can still install those SDKs if you want to, but PhoneGap Build makes this really easy because I can just go to PhoneGap Build Service, But I'm going to roll this back. I'm going to show you what you get. Actually, let's take it from the very top, guys, because chances are you might be logged out completely. And at this point, if I can remember my login, you log in to PhoneGap Build, which is the equivalent of, darn it, going to, in the browser, doing the same thing. Yeah, that's no fun. Does anybody remember my login? It actually should be this. AOE.com. Let's just double check this. Stay with me here, guys. Just let's try this once more. All right, so this is what I can do as well. Just as easily, and this is what I was going to show you in the browser, is the fact that you can actually log in by going to build.phonegap.com. So what I can do is I can log in again from the browser. So a little secret, guys, I don't even need to be a Creative Cloud member to build an app. I can actually use a trial version and build an app myself. Now I can only build one, but at least you can try it out if you want. So you go to New App, and you can do this a couple different ways. Okay, it could be open source on a GitHub account. It could be private on a GitHub account. So it could be open source or private. Okay. Private app just means it's just code that you have access to that's not publicly available on GitHub. But what you can do there is, again, paste in that GitHub repo or even upload a zip. And that's the simplest thing you guys can do, even when it comes to creating this content that you might have on your hard drive. So I can jump out to those files and take all of that content right here, select it all, compress it into one nice little zip file that happens to be on my desktop now. And then from there, I can package it up. So back here, selecting that zip file, opening that up, and now it's going to upload that zip file and then basically package it as an app for multiple platforms, just like I've done down here, okay? So that's what it's going to be doing. Okay, so it's uploaded it. As you can see right here, I can select, since it's ready to build, I can enable debugging. I can enable hydration. I'll talk about those in a second, but let's click Ready to Build. All right. That is building right now. In fact, as I select it, you can see that it's building an app for all of these different platforms. iOS, Android, we have Windows Phone, BlackBerry, HP, and if you're curious, so you can build apps this way, but also you can actually see what apps are available out there. So while that's running, I'm going to point out one more thing. If I could show you all the different apps that were created for all of these different platforms. So I can scroll down and I can see all the apps. Again, this is on phonegap.com/app. iOS, the BlackBerry apps, Palm, Bada, and Symbian. Again, I know there's a lot of people here just from around the world. You can make apps for multiple platforms. I know in the US we tend to think mainly iOS when the world isn't iOS, overall. So again, check out all these apps. I have them actually installed. Again, a lot of these on my phone. Untapped is a good one that a lot of people know of. But these apps do different things. They're not just HTML. This one taps into geolocation. This one actually taps into your camera, okay, and allows you to overlay graphics on top of any photo that you've taken or pulled in from your camera roll. All right, and all right. As I was stalling just so these could be built, and this happens too, guys. And I did this on purpose. I've kind of figured this would happen, okay? Because if there's any issue with any sort of these builds, it'll actually tell you. So for BlackBerry, it says there's an invalid CSK password. Okay, so I didn't sign the key for my BlackBerry device. Okay, for even iOS, no key was selected. But I can select Paul's Dev certificate, all right? So for some of these, you actually, excuse me, for iOS, you specifically need an iOS developer certificate to create an iOS app, all right? That's a whole nother process. That would take us an hour in general. But from there, I can either say I can rebuild the IPA. In fact, I might actually do that right now just because it needs that developer certificate and it will rebuild it. But the great thing is I don't need to connect my device like by USB or anything. I can actually just take this QR code and take a picture of it. All right, so that's what I want to do. Basically scan it in using a QR reader. And again, I'm just jumping back in here really fast, guys, because I'm going to try to sign back into this panel. Give me 1 second. Okay. So that's what I can do is sign in usually. And what happens is you actually get the same QR codes that you get in the web browser. So you get the same QR code is actually listed right in here. So it's the same process. It's just this panel displays the QR code. But again, what I can do is I can go ahead and fire up my phone, a QR code reader. In fact, I can do that multiple ways. Let's see. Make sure this is launched. Okay, I can't actually, looks like I can't, let's try. Hold on 1 second, I'm just sharing my screen here. And it actually will not let me since I have my phone on. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do this. All right, hold on 1 second. I'm just going to go ahead and, again, just use Photo Booth. But in general, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something called Red Laser. And Red Laser allows me to go ahead and scan in the QR code. That's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to scan in that QR code.
Hey, Paul, it's a little hard to hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, so basically I've used Red Laser to scan in my QR code. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I've used it to scan in my particular QR code. You can see it right there. It says, hey, do you want to view it? Hi, guys. I know I haven't shaved today. I wasn't planning on being on camera. But what happens is it starts to install that app right there, as you can see. All right? It's actually installing that app right now. All right. Once it installs it, it will, I can launch it, and it will work on an iOS device. And this survival guide is one I wanted to show you. It does use the compass, but you can actually tap into some of the native functionality of a device and just go to PhoneGap Documentation. If you wanted to use the camera, literally just go to Camera, scroll down, and you can see this full example. So you can actually copy this code, paste it onto an HTML page, and then publish it. You can publish it using PhoneGap or even upload it using PhoneGap Build and have access to your camera. All right? So this API is there for your reference. Everything that you'd expect is in here. Geolocation, all of that good stuff is available. So I encourage you to check out that. This one does use Compass, but you can see that actually is in there, the full example for accessing the Compass. Again, it's a survival guide app. That's what I would expect. So it's actually still installing. Apologize for that. And apologize for me using my iPhone, so I actually can't share my screen right now. So I just don't have a landline available. But nonetheless, that will install and be available to me here in a second. A couple new things that have happened recently is we have also updated PhoneGap as well. PhoneGap 3.0 actually is available, which again does exactly what it says here. You can include just the APIs that you need. So if you want to use a specific API, it won't use sort of the whole architecture. It'll just use that specific API. Basically makes your app smaller. In-app browser is cool. Globalization API, so you can actually not only get the location, but get the language and other specifics depending on your region. And that's what the globalization API is. And then there's new platform support. Okay, so this is going to work, of course, on iOS 6, but also iOS 7, which we're working on now, Windows Phone 8, BlackBerry 10, and then Firefox and Ubuntu are coming soon. So that's what's coming soon, and if I could, let me just show you this. As it loads in, it says loading the hydrated application, and I'm sorry that's backwards, but it's loading this hydrated application. And I know one of the questions was, what is hydration? And hydration is basically the ability for me to update this particular app. So you can see down at the bottom that says update and restart now, or it says ignore for now. Okay, so I can actually go ahead and give somebody the QR code for this app, and if I update it as a developer, it'll prompt them to update this app. So that's what I'm going to do, update and restart now, because it's actually a newer build that I just built for you guys just now, and it's retrieving that new build. So you don't have to worry about whether people have the latest version. It actually will always just make sure that everybody has the latest version. There was also debugging, okay? So basically, I can debug this using Winery from my browser, okay, which is great. So I'll show you how that looks too as that updates. going into PhoneGap Build, if I want to debug, selecting debug, it does say, hey, you know what? We can't connect to your debug server, but you can actually attempt to debug, and that actually has worked for me. All right, so I've been able to debug and click through the CSS, basically all my web content, just like I would in a web browser. Okay, so that's what debugging works. Hydration is, again, I'll make sure everybody's apps are updated. All right, and I know this is kind of anticlimactic, seeing as this is backwards. That's absolutely no fun. But there's my survival guide. You guys get the idea. I can select cookout. It gives me that drop-down list. Actually, let me show it to you. Selecting that, it gives me that native list. Okay, so on iOS, it gives me this list. But I didn't have to program iOS and Android. It actually will give me the native list, depending on the app, or excuse me, the platform that I'm on. So yeah, that's exactly what happens. I can select any one of those options. And it works exactly as expected. All right, you can see it right there. And here is the compass. Okay, so I got some interference because I have so many devices, but you can see the compass is working right there. As I tilt it, you can see how that compass works. All right, which I think it's kind of funny to have a survival guide app because seeing as you have a phone, you could probably just pick it up and call somebody or order a pizza, as opposed to how do I catch a fish? So nonetheless, you have that same control on the device, exactly like any of the other apps that are on your device, as you can see right there. And I can debug it. I can try to do this. I have 7 minutes. Again, loading a hydrated application. And I can attempt to debug this and see if it connects. Sure, why not? There we go. So yeah, it does connect, and I can start to toggle through, say, the different elements for that page. So as you can see right here, guys, so I've selected it, and I'm clicking through the content of this page. So I'm selecting the content here. Let's take this header up at the top. Survival guide app. I'll just change this content. Just changing the name of it. And you can see that this says survival guide app. I just changed it right in here. We have that direct connection with my device, which is really, really pretty impressive. All right, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and answer some questions now, if I could. And I'm sorry I couldn't even log in Dreamweaver. I'm actually not sure. I probably can now that, yeah, let's try that once more. Why not? That's the problem with never logging out, as you can, I just can't ever remember my password for this. So nonetheless, let's shift gears and let's answer some questions if we could. I've tried to answer them all along the way. My question is, what's my password? But wondering if you guys have any. I'm going to, yeah, that's good as far as the length. There we go. Is there anything that needs to be installed in order to scan the QR code? And you will need a QR code reader. That's why I've selected Red Laser to scan in that QR code. But also, I actually can just get that specific URL from that QR code. So I can send that URL by email to myself, to anyone I want. And there's also, next to the QR code is a button for usually for downloading the app. So you can actually download the APK or IPA and you can put that in Dropbox if you wanted to. Everybody can pull it from Dropbox. But since hydration is enabled, anytime they launch the app, it'll say, you know, hydration is enabled, and it's basically you get this. Yeah, same QR code set up on Android as well. PhoneGap Build does not require an Android key. Tom, just so you know, it doesn't require an Android key. It should work just fine. And it's just the iOS where you'll need to go through that pain. But it's nice you only set it up once, and then it's good to go. If you guys need to know about how to create a developer certificate, I actually have some videos that I did a while ago that I can send your way. So you can have an RSS Fracture asks about jQuery or an RSS reader in jQuery mobile. And the short of it is you can, anything that you use on a web page can be used in an app, okay? I do have to be concerned or not, just like I need to be respectful of the user in that I don't want to push down a lot of content because it just is going to eat up their data plan. So I want to be Nadia asked if you should have knowledge of JavaScript before you start developing web applications. I would say yes, you know, definitely. Take a lynda.com course. Creative Cloud members have access to Creative Cloud Learn. I'm not sure if there's JavaScript out there, but building mobile applications, I'm sure there's various tutorials there, but I encourage you to, if you're going to get into the field. Is there an easy way to connect to the database? Benjamin asks. Yeah, I mean, if you understand how to connect to the database on a website, it's the same way, okay? But concerning connecting to a database and external content, again, shameless plug to go to paultrani.com because I created a video on how to add data bindings. So you can actually, you could connect to a database, but you can pull content from a Flickr gallery, from Facebook, from YouTube, using just by following that video. Yeah, lots of questions, guys. Wow. Can you have a media player or audio from the app through Dreamweaver? Yeah, again, just all, I know there's the new media insert panel, which will allow you to insert HTML5 video and audio, which is probably the way you want to go because you want it to launch the native player for that video. So that's how I would do that. And then how do you load custom icons? Are they a font? In this case, they're not a font, but you can use custom font icons, which is a great idea, and thank you for bringing that up, because that's going to be resolution independent. So whether you're on a high DPI device or not, that is a wise way to go. I think one of my coworkers, I think Michael, or at least a step-by-step. But there's resources out there. And to answer Dave, you can get PhoneGap directly from the browser using your Adobe account. The thing is that PhoneGap login should be the same as your Adobe ID. And for some reason, that was not working for me. So if you're having the same issues I was having, like, let me know, because it could be me, but it could be an issue that the team needs to look at. Yeah, and then Ivan asks about AJAX loaded pages with HTML content from a server. Yeah, I mean, it's true that Apple does not like loading in a lot of content from an external server. I don't know if that will work or not because I actually haven't done it. But it doesn't, usually Apple just wants you to pull in images and text generally from a remote location. All right, so that's kind of what they want you to do. They don't want you, again, they want you to make a respectful app that doesn't have to dynamically load in the whole interface from a remote server. It should be an app that you download that then gets updated with content. So, sorry I don't have a direct answer, but that's what they want you to do. I'm going to answer 2 more questions. Well, actually, you know what? We have time. I think what I will do is I'll answer a couple more questions. I understand that it's our hour is up, so I want to be respectful of your time. So Neil Ash asks if you can watch this tutorial again. Yes, you can. If you go to techlive.adobe.com, there's an archives section which will show that you can watch as many samples as you want until you're sick of me. Valerie does says that there is an issue where you can't connect your Adobe login necessarily. So I'll take a look at that. But last question here. If I make Windows Phone apps, how about the theme? Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that. But Windows Phone apps, they love HTML and JavaScript. So your content is going to look and work fine there. I'd have to test it on a Windows Phone that when I select the drop-down list, it gives me their native drop-down list. And I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will because that's the whole purpose of PhoneGap and PhoneGap Build is to make this easy for you to make a cross-platform app. So the answer is yes. And you can, lastly, you can insert PHP inside of your jQuery mobile page. You can play video with HTML5 on jQuery mobile. Just call that HTML5 video, that MPEG-4, whatever the case is. So, and then NKit says Windows Phone 8 and JavaScript HTML5